Tapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara varishtaya Ramakrishna te namah Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityorma mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to remove all our ignorance, to lead us to the light of knowledge, to give peace and bliss. Sri Ramakrishna's teachings in the Gospel are meant to be intensely practical. All his teachings were aimed at making the spiritual aspirants practical in their thinking, feeling and willing. In every respect, the spiritual aspirant must be practical. So, all his teachings we must view through this perspective. You know, Sri Ramakrishna came to meet the great Pandit of that time, Shashadhar, Pandit Shashadhar, a good scholar. Sri Ramakrishna himself went to see him in order to guide him in the right direction. This is the example how God, out of His infinite love, helps men. Here Sri Ramakrishna has come of his own accord just to make him understand the reality. So, while talking to Pandit, he defined the word Pandit. Who is called a Pandit? One may be erudite scholar. Does it make him a Pandit? He might have read all the literature. He might have memorized all the spiritual texts. Do you call him a Pandit? Simply because he has the knowledge of all these scriptures? It requires special quality to be called a real Pandit. What is that? He must know how to discriminate between what is real and what is unreal. If a person is able to do that, then he is really a Pandit. Otherwise not. I am telling you, all Sri Ramakrishna's teachings are pointed towards making practical in our spiritual ways. So he is a great Pandit, no doubt, but he wanted to make him go in the right path. So particularly this scholar, every now and then he would go and give talks. So Sri Ramakrishna is telling, well, attain some spiritual strength, have some spiritual achievements, live the life in a proper way, then you speak. It will have tremendous effect. That means there is no harm in teaching others if you have a commission from the Lord. If you have a commission from the Lord. That's a very important and significant statement. Nobody can confound a preacher who teaches people after having received the command of God. That means your whole life must be spiritual. In order you may speak authoritatively. So Sri Ramakrishna tells, getting a ray of light from the goddess of learning, a man becomes so powerful that before him big scholars seem mere earthworms. Mere earthworms. Command of God. Swami Vivekananda, when he came and addressed the Parliament of Religions, what tremendous reaction in the audience. What tremendous attraction he generated in the hearts of the people. It's all because he had the command. He was commissioned to do that. Sri Ramakrishna himself wanted that Vivekananda should go and broadcast to the world the wonderful truths of Vedanta. So, when the lamp is lighted, the moths come in swarms. They don't have to be invited. In the same way, the preacher who has a commission from God need not invite people to hear him. He doesn't have to announce the time of his lectures. He possesses such irresistible attraction that people come to him of their own accord. People of all classes, even kings and aristocrats, gather around him. They say to him, "Revered sir, what can we offer you? Here are mangoes, here are sweets, here are money, shawls, other things. What will you be pleased to accept?" These are all the words of Sri Ramakrishna I am quoting. Afterwards I will elaborate on these points. In that case, Sri Ramakrishna said, I say to them, go away, I don't care for this, I don't want anything. Your shawl, your money, keep yourself. So, again, to see the life of Swami Vivekananda. Wherever Vivekananda would go, people would come from nowhere. Hundreds of people would come. Thousands of people would come. Irresistible attraction. So, Vivekananda is a concrete example demonstrating what Sri Ramakrishna had said. And then Sri Ramakrishna is telling, a person who has received command from God, he may not be a scholar even, but don't conclude from that he has any lack of wisdom. What is your bookish knowledge? Wisdom is important. Does book learning make one wise? He who has a commission from God never runs short of wisdom. That wisdom comes from God. It is inexhaustible. Take the example of Sri Ramakrishna himself. He never get into school and colleges for getting the so-called education which we are all boasting. But he was most learned of all the learned people. He was most wise of all the wise people. That is the test of spirituality. Sri Ramakrishna is fixing us in that particular teaching. He wants us to be intensely spiritual, intensely practical. Follow the teachings in letter and spirit. Letter and spirit. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example. There is a lake in Haldarpukur. People used to make dirty the bank of Haldar lake. People used to create nuisance there. Nobody could stop it. But a cop armed with authority from the government stopped it effectively just by putting up a notice prohibiting it. People are prohibited to make any nuisance on the bank of this Haladarpukur lake. One notice. From next day, nobody was dare enough to do that because it was authority. So, Sri Ramakrishna is telling, if you go on preaching when you yourself are not practicing it, it will have no effect on the people. No effect on the people. But people will listen to him if he is armed with a badge of authority from God. One cannot teach others without the commission from God, because a teacher must have great power. Now, there is a beautiful episode in Srimad Bhagavat which is very relevant to appreciate this teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Once there was a king. His name was Rahugan. He had all comforts. He was ruling the kingdom well. Then a desire came to him. Desire came to him in such a way that he wanted to approach a sage to get spiritual instructions. There was one famous sage at that period. His name was Kapila Maharshi, a great saint. So he set out in a palanquin to go to sage's hermitage. You know, palanquin will be carried by 4 people. And they were carrying him, going on the road. But after some time, suddenly what happened? One of the bearers got sick. So he could not lift the palanquin. So he had to go. Then how to continue the journey? So the king's attendants were searching for a able-bodied man. Fortunately, they found a young, robust, strong man was sitting under a tree. So they felt very happy. So immediately they approached him. They ordered him, come on, you help us in lifting this palanquin. King is there. We have to take him to a place. That man who was sitting under the tree, enjoying himself, immense peace and joy, when he was commanded like this, he did not react in any manner. Just he followed. All right. He came. He put his shoulder. He took one of the arms of the palanquin on his shoulder, and they continued journey. What happened was, after this new person joined them, somehow it was not smooth. There would be jerks and jolts while moving. It was not even. Why it was happening that way? There was a reason. This new man who had come there, he would look on the ground for a short distance before stepping forward, lest he should trample over any worms. He didn't want to injure any beings on the earth. So he wanted to be sure whether the path is clear, then he would move. So naturally, the palanquin was not moving in a proper way. It caused great discomfort to the king. So he began to shout, why the palanquin is moving this way? Because king is sitting inside, he doesn't know what is happening outside, because the screen is there. The king's attendants answered. They said, they are carrying it all right, but the newcomer does not proceed fast enough. So we are unable to carry it evenly along with him. That's a problem. Then, hearing that, the king said ironically, oh, what a pity. He is referring to that new man. He was uttering these words in a sarcastic way. Well, it is clear that you are very tired. You have borne the palanquin single-handed for a long distance. You are not strong and stout. You have become old. He is just making fun. That means taunting him as if, why you are behaving like an old man? Why you are behaving like a weakling? Why you are behaving like a sickly person? He meant all these things when he uttered this way. What was the reaction? The young man didn't say anything, didn't react at all. He continued to carry the palanquin. The king thought the matter was rectified, but after some time, again he got a severe jolt. The king was about to fall inside his palanquin. So he became very angry. Then he warned the newcomer, "Well, you seem to be more dead than alive. You are disobeying me. So you deserve punishment, so that it may bring you to your senses. So punishment is required for you." Like that, as usual, all the kings talk in an arrogant way, because of their power. They can do anything. So the king was talking in this way, but these threats did not have any effect on this young man. On the other hand, he smiled and said to him, "Well, whom do you call a fool?" Now, you can imagine the newcomer is addressing the king. Generally, people will be terribly afraid to speak to the king. But here is a man who is not afraid of anything. And he is speaking to him in a very casual way, but seriously. He wanted to teach him proper lesson. Instead of king teaching him through punishment, this young man wanted to teach the king without any threats. That is the power of this young man. Well, who you say is weary? Who is afflicted with old age? What is all this you are referring to? Weary, stout, old, all these things? These epithets are used by the wise with reference to the body alone and not to indicate the incorporeal spirit. I am none of these which you are referring to. Stoutness, leanness, physical ailments, mental worries, old age, egoism, sorrow, etc., etc., etc. These exist for one who has identified himself with the flesh, but not for one who has become one with the spirit. He is indicating to the king thereby that he is not at all identified with all this nonsense. Life is followed by death. This is seen as a rule in all changeful things. Every compounded thing has a beginning and an end. The relation of master and servant also is not eternal. Don't think you are the king permanently and all the attendants are your servants all the time. Don't have that attitude. So, except in words, there is not any occasion for a sense of difference between things and persons. When such is the case, who is a ruler and what is there to be ruled? So of what avail is your punishment to one who, though looking like a lunatic or a drunk, has realized the self? And suppose you think I am mad, then your punishment would be all the more futile. So he just spoke in this way for a short while, and then again he took the palanquin on his shoulder and began to walk as before. That young man was none other than Bharat, in whose name the India was named Bharat. People have forgotten that name. They call it India. The real name of India is Bharat. This great Bharata was there, so the whole country was blessed to have him. So his words of wisdom cut the knots of ignorance. The king was shaken thoroughly. After all, he was going to seek spiritual instruction, And here is a person who is just pouring these spiritual instructions to him, and pouring with authority, making him understand that he is no more body or no more mind or no more ego, any such things. He is beyond all these things. He is Atman. So immediately the king got down from the palanquin. His pride of learning and kingship received a decisive shock. He fell at the feet of Bharata, begged his forgiveness. Then he was interested to know who this young man was. He asked him, "Who are you moving about in disguise with profound knowledge? If I see you, immediately I can make out you don't have any attachment to anything. You don't care for anything, even the body. You are not afraid of death, you are not afraid of anything, you are not afraid of punishment. Maybe you, the pure Lord himself, or the sage Kapila in disguise, to whom I was going for spiritual instructions. So, in my vanity of kingship I have disrespected you, the noblest of men. Therefore be pleased with me and teach me the knowledge of the self." Because of the power of words uttered by Bharata, the king was transformed. He was hankering after to know the knowledge of self. Bharat was happy to tell him in brief about the nature of Atman, how to arrive at. He said to the king, "So long as the mind of a man is dominated by the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, it wanders uncontrolled to the finite objects, bringing happiness and misery alternately. This time you are happy, next moment you are unhappy. Every moment you keep on changing very rapidly. The mind is a storehouse of impressions. The mind is attached to sense pleasures, tossed about by the gunas. It easily gets tainted by lust, anger, etc. The wise man Paul, he is a ruler of his own Maya, Mayadhipati. And as a ruler, He dwells in the hearts of all He has created. So He knows everyone's actions, good and bad, because He is there. Even though you may close the door, close all the windows, and think you are doing it secretly, God knows all your secrets, because He is staying with you all the time. Human beings, they repeatedly go round the wheel of birth and death until they wake up, and by controlling their passions, free themselves from the bondage of Maya and know the truth of divine self. There is no salvation or freedom until a man frees himself from his own mind, knowing the truth of the self as distinct from the mind. As long as you think you are the mind, you can't be free. When you become completely aware of the fact that mind is separate, you are separate, then you are sure to gain freedom. So, it is a mind that causes the experience of misery, delusion, disease, anger, etc. Everything is because of the mind. So the mind is the abode of all this. Though unreal, the mind robs you of your real nature. The enemy of it has become your enemy, it has become powerful because of your negligence. Therefore, Bharata says to the king, cast off your carelessness and subjugate your mind with sword of knowledge. Sword of knowledge. But it should be sharpened. How? By the worship of the Lord. So worship has a place. It sharpens the sword of knowledge. There is one truth, one existence, knowledge itself, the unitary consciousness, pure, unchangeable, beyond subject and object. This knowledge they call God, the Lord of love. So he is advising him to become associated with great souls. Association is very important. Then you can attain knowledge. When the heart has become pure, then one takes delight in meditating upon the Lord of love. So, you have to burn the sin of ignorance by the fire of knowledge. Then you will realize your identity with Brahman and attain the Lord of love, the goal of life. Then Bharata makes him more aware of the reality. What is this world? It is compared to a dense forest where people have lost their way. There are thieves and robbers in the forest. He is referring to the senses and sense experiences. They are the thieves and robbers. The robbers of our true heritage, the divinity within. We think we are sinners, we are useless, we are idiots, we are stupids, we are worldly, we are this, that. Anything other than God, we keep on shouting. There is a mirage before us. We see it and run to satisfy our thirst. There is a thirst for happiness in us, and we run to satisfy this in the objective world, which is as illusory as the mirage. At times we remember that there is nothing desirable in the world, but this soon we forget. We go round and round in this forest and don't find our way out until some kind traveler, some great soul reveals the path to us. The wise, the self-controlled ones, having attained freedom for themselves, show us the way to freedom. And then he is telling the king, O king, you are lost in the deep forest of the world. If you are seeking freedom, give up all attachment. Be friendly to all the beings, and with the sword of knowledge, sharpened by worship and meditation and service, cut asunder the bonds of ignorance. All these words coming out of Bharat had such tremendous effect upon the king. He felt as if he had become a saint already. He felt so much purified himself thoroughly. So he offered his salutations, he touched his feet, and he said to him, well, I don't need to go to Kapila anymore. I have got what all I have to get from you. I have got a teacher who has illumined himself. So your words have tremendous effect upon me. They have transformed my life. So he went back to the palace. He handed over the charge of the kingdom to others. He just devoted his whole time in deep thinking and meditation, and finally he got freedom. So all these things he could achieve because a person of authority could speak and he could transform, and it had that tremendous effect. If a worldly man talks the same philosophy, just it works on a superficial level. It doesn't even enter into the ears. Just he may hear it and he forgets immediately. But if a saint speaks, we cannot forget. When Sri Ramakrishna tells, nobody forgets. Because his words are full of force, full of spiritual strength. So naturally, they are having tremendous power on us. Page 468. What is Bhakti Yoga? It is to keep the mind on God by chanting His name and glories. For the Kali Yuga, the path of devotion is easiest. This is indeed the path for this age. The path of karma is very difficult. First of all, as I have just said, where will one find the time for it nowadays? Where is the time for a man to perform his duties as enjoined in the scriptures? Man's life is short in this age. Further, it is extremely difficult to perform one's duties in a spirit of detachment without craving the result. One cannot work in such a spirit without first having realized God. Attachment to the result somehow enters the mind, though you may not be aware of it. To follow Jnana Yoga in this age is also very difficult. First, a man's life depends entirely on food. Second, he has a short span of life. Third, he can by no means get rid of body consciousness. And the knowledge of Brahman is impossible without the destruction of body consciousness. The Jnani says, I am Brahman, I am not the body. I am beyond hunger and thirst, disease and grief, birth and death, pleasure and pain. How can you be a jnani if you are conscious of disease, grief, pain, pleasure and the like? A thorn enters your flesh, blood flows from the wound, and you suffer very badly from the pain, but nevertheless, if you are a jnani, you must be able to say, why? There is no thorn in my flesh at all. Nothing is the matter with me. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga is prescribed for this age. By following this path, one comes to God more easily than by following the others. One can undoubtedly reach God by following the paths of jnana and karma, but they are very difficult paths. Bhakti Yoga is a religion for this age, but that doesn't mean that the lover of God will reach one goal and the philosopher and worker another. It means that if a person seeks the knowledge of Brahman, he can attain it by following the path of bhakti too. God, who loves his devotee, can give him the knowledge of Brahman if he so desires. But the bhakta wants to realize a personal God endowed with form and talk to him. He seldom seeks the knowledge of Brahman, but God, who does everything at his pleasure, can make his devotee the heir to his infinite glories if it pleases him. He gives his devotee both the love of God and the knowledge of Brahman. If one is able somehow to reach Calcutta, one can see the Maidan and the museum and other places too. The thing is how to reach Calcutta. By realizing the Divine Mother of the universe, you will get knowledge as well as devotion. You will get both. In Bhava Samadhi you will see the form of God, and in Nirvikalpa Samadhi you will realize Brahman, the absolute existence, knowledge, bliss. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, ego, name and form don't exist. A lover of God prays to the Divine Mother, O Mother, I am very much afraid of selfish actions. Such actions have desires behind them, and if I perform them I shall have to reap their fruit. But it is very difficult to work in a detached spirit. I shall certainly forget thee, O Mother, if I involve myself in selfish actions. Therefore I have no use for them. May my actions, O Divine Mother, be fewer every day till I attain thee. May I perform without attachment to the results only what action is absolutely necessary for me. May I have great love for thee as I go on with my own few duties. May I not entangle myself in new work so long as I do not realize thee. But I shall perform if I receive thy command, otherwise not. Pandit said, how far did you go in visiting the sacred places? Master replied, oh, I visited a few places, with a smile. But Hazra went farther and also climbed higher. He visited Rishikesh. I didn't go so far or so high. You must have noticed kites and vultures soaring very high in the sky, but their eyes are always fixed on the charnel pits. Do you know the meaning of charnel pits? It is lust and gold. What's the use of making pilgrimages if you cannot attain love of God remaining where you are? I have been to Benares and noticed the same trees there as here, the same green tamarind leaves. Pilgrimage becomes futile if it doesn't enable you to attain love of God. Love of God is the one essential and necessary thing. Do you know the meaning of kites and vultures? There are many people who talk big and who say that they have performed most of the duties enjoined in the scriptures. But with all that, their minds are engrossed in worldliness and deeply preoccupied with money, riches, name, fame, creature comforts and such things. Pandit said, it is true, sir. Going on a pilgrimage is like seeking diamonds and gems while discarding the precious stone that is worn by Narayana himself on his breast. Master, I want you to remember this. You may impart thousands of instructions to people, but they will not bear fruit except in proper time. On going to bed, a child said to his mother, "Mother, please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." The mother said, "Don't worry about it, my child. That call will wake you up itself." All laugh. One feels yearning for God at a proper time. There are three classes of physicians. The physicians of one class feel the patient's pulse and go away, merely prescribing medicine. As they leave the room, they simply ask the patient to take the medicine. They are the poorest class of physicians. Likewise, there are teachers who only give instruction but don't stop to see whether their teachings have produced a good or bad effect. They don't think at all about the disciple. There are physicians of another class who prescribe medicine and ask the patient to take it. If the patient is unwilling to follow their directions, they reason with him. They are the mediocre physicians. Likewise, there are mediocre teachers. They give instruction to the student and further try to persuade him in various ways to follow the instruction. Lastly, there are the physicians of the highest class. If the patient doesn't respond to their gentle persuasion, they even exert force upon him. If necessary, they press their knees on the patient's chest and force the medicine down his throat. Likewise, there are teachers of the highest class who even exert force to direct the mind of the pupil toward God. Pandit said, "Sir, if there are such superior teachers as you have described, then why should you say that one doesn't get the knowledge of God until the right time comes?" Master replied, "You are right. But what will the physicians do if the medicine runs out of the patient's mouth and doesn't reach his stomach? In such a case, even the best physician can't do anything. The teacher should judge the fitness of the student before giving him instruction. But you don't discriminate in your instruction. When a young man comes to me for instruction, first of all I ask him about his relatives at home. Suppose he has lost his father. Suppose his father has left some debts for him. How can such a person direct his mind to God? Are you listening to me?" Pandit said, "Yes, sir. I am paying attention to every word." Master said, "One day some 6 soldiers came to the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. I met them in front of the Kali temple. One of them referred to God as very compassionate. Indeed, I said, is it true? But how do you know? He answered, because, sir, God gives us food and takes every care of us. I said, why should that surprise you? God is the father of us all. Who will look after the child if the father doesn't? Do you mean to say that the people of the neighboring village should look after the child? Narendra, then should not we call God kind? Master, have I forbidden you to? What I mean is that God is our very own. He is not a stranger to us. Pandit said priceless words. So stop here. Yes, give your observations and comments and words of wisdom. Yes. Start. Once you start, the words will come. Observations, your own. Yeah. But one has to make tremendous self-effort. It's very important. Otherwise, they take very conveniently. Oh, everything will come in its own time. Let it come in its own time. Then he keeps on behaving in his own way in the world, as if the time will come when everything is over. What is the meaning of right time will come? Proper time will come? The meaning of proper time means you are passing through the fire of sufferings, then it prepares you to face the hour of time. Then you open your eyes. What is this? I am burning myself thoroughly. Yes, you have to burn all your impurities thoroughly before you come to God. So, anyway, Sri Ramakrishna has given these instructions, and Sri Ramakrishna is alive now in the form of these instructions in the gospel. So, all his words are recorded during his lifetime by Master Mahashaya, so we could get all these things exactly what Sri Ramakrishna had said. So, it is ocean. Each one can take whatever he wants and practice it. Practice. Throughout the gospel, you see, one line constantly being marked. Practice, 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 practice. So whole life we have to spend in practice. Till you do practice, you have no right to ask for result. Doing practice itself is not very regular. We do it in a very haphazard way. So, how can you expect the result? Don't aspire for the result means give full attention to what you are doing. That's the meaning. If for some reason you are diverting your attention on the result, that means to that extent your concentration is broken. To that extent you have fallen from your rigorous practice of discipline. Don't aspire for results means don't aspire. Literally. It will come by itself. You are not to judge about the things what you have done. So somebody else is taking care of that, giving result to you. They know at what time the result is to be given. The Guru knows at what time the grace should be shown to the disciple. It's not the disciple's condition. Oh, the Guru is not showing grace, why should I be a disciple? It is not a commercial relationship at all. The spiritual relationship is entirely different. The moment you exercise your ego, to that extent you are falling from the spiritual ideal. The moment you think you are important and you are to be honored, etc., you are shattering your spiritual life. On the other hand, you should think how much respect I give to all. Take no respect, give respect to all. That's what we chant the name of the Lord. Give honor to everyone. That's your business. If others don't give honor, you are not to question that. I am telling from the spiritual point of view. If you are a spiritual aspirant, your thinking should not go in that way. Let me give good things. Let me respect properly. If others don't respect, it is their lot. It is their karma. It is their own past impressions. It is their own whims and fancies. Why should I interfere with them? Why? So, spiritual life must be taken from that point of view. That's why always we keep on saying spiritual life is intensely practical. You have come to Sri Ramakrishna means you have to be intensely practical. There may be failures, accept them in a dignified way. Correct it. Transform yourself. So like that you should keep attention towards our inner development. Inner development. That's very important. So, all these things have been told many, many times. What else? Even if the new incarnation comes, he will also tell the same thing. Do the work selflessly, give up attachment. What else he will do? What else he will tell? The sum and substance of all the teachings is only this. Love God, get peace and joy. So, Sri Ramakrishna's teachings are effective that way. We are here as spiritual aspirants, struggling and struggling. The struggling is not enough. It is not enough to the extent it should produce results. Your spiritual struggle is not enough to produce the results. That's my way of understanding spirituality. Me only to blame, none else. 100% I agree to that. 100%. Me only to blame, none others. Yes? You are asking something? Yeah. Any question? Anything to ask? All right, we shall conclude. Chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O name stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its curve to knowledge of thyself. O self, drowned deep in the waves of His bliss, tasting His nectar at every step, bathing in His name, that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord, in each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy, how huge then is my wretchedness, who finds in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass, be patient and forbearing like a tree, take no honor to thyself, give honor to all, chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the toys of fame. As many times as they may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy consider him as dust beneath thy feet. Ah, how I long for the day when an instant separation from thee, O Lord, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be an unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stillest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. May all be free from dangers, may all realize what is good, may all be actuated by noble thoughts, may all rejoice everywhere. May all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all realize what is good, may none be subject to misery. May the wicked become virtuous, may the virtuous attain tranquility, may the tranquil be free from bonds, may the freed make others free. May good betide all people, may the sovereign righteously rule the earth, may all beings ever attain what is good, may the worlds be prosperous and happy, may the clouds pour rain in time, may the earth be blessed with crops, may all countries be free from calamity, may holy men live without fear. May the Lord, the destroyer of sins, the presiding deity of all sacred works, be satisfied. For he being pleased, the whole universe becomes pleased. He being satisfied, the whole universe feels satisfied.